And we are going to jump into it right now. Socially distance from Seattle. I like physically distant. It's my preference to go there because we're socializing right now. I'm concerned, is mental distance and emotional distance. I think it's very important more than ever right now to feel connected, to stay connected. Okay, I have 3 cameras here, and I want to thank you for joining me. Right now we are live on Facebook. While there are a lot of people watching on Instagram, there is a limit of time. So if you can watch it at Jim Kwik Official, that would be ideal on Facebook. If you're just joining me right now, my name is Jim Kwik of Kwik Learning, and I'm here to help you to learn quickly. That is my mission in life. It is my passion to leave no brain left behind. No brain left behind. I grew up in learning difficulties, and so I'm very passionate about education. And in this session, I'm going to share with you some tips and strategies and tools on how to maximize your studies. And whether you're a student, you're a parent helping a student, or you're a student of life, this is going to be very supportive. Now, some of the examples I'm going to use in this session, because if I'm speaking to doctors, we use medicine as an example. If I speak to lawyers, we'll use law as an example. If I'm talking to students, we're going to be using student examples. So some of the subjects you study in school. I'm going to show you how to learn it in a fraction of the time, and we're going to jump into it right now. What I would recommend you do right now, please, is share this right now. This is live. And so again, I'm recording this on 3 different cameras right now. Again, if you're watching on Facebook, you're great. If you're watching on Instagram, you might want to watch it on Facebook just because we're going to go past the hour limit on Instagram. I would encourage you to grab your notebook. There was studies done referring to taking notes with a notepad, which is what I do, is preference to focus and retention. Digitally is better for sharing and for storage, but when you're handwriting it, you can't possibly write down everything I say word for word, so it forces you to look at it and actually use a filter and choose to figure out what's most important in this process. The stuff I'm going to be teaching here today are based out of 2 things. Number 1, out of our student program, called Kwik Student. You can find out more about it at kwikstudent.com, Kwik student.com. It's our 30-day program that we teach on study skills. And this is, again, whether you are in middle school, junior high, high school, college graduate, graduate school, this will help you be able to take tests, be able to cut your studying time. So let's jump into it. Share this wide and far. If you're on Instagram, you can take a screenshot of it and then tag me in it. And we are going to be raffling off also. You are the first people to see this. This is an actual copy of my brand new book, Limitless, which comes out in about a week. And it is gorgeous. This is the textbook on how to learn anything faster. And I'm going to talk about this model specifically on how this model will show you how to not only learn faster, but also unlock all your potential. And I know it's a big claim. And so this is 28 years of me teaching this out in the field, from children with the most severe learning challenges to aging adults who are early onset dementia. I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's, so it's something I'm very passionate about. We thank you also for all the support here and everything. So much love here. So let's jump into it, okay? There are 6 keys to learning any subject or skill faster, all right? And I want you to, if you heard me say these again, I'm gonna go through this very quickly, because what keeps you from mastery and excellence is saying that I know this already, all right? So 6 keys. I want you to remember the acronym FASTER, and I use a lot of alliteration, a lot of mnemonics, a lot of acronyms to help keep things very memorable for you. So FASTER, F-A-S-T-E-R, and each one stands for something. And we're gonna go about 90 minutes on here, okay? So we're gonna go 90 minutes teaching these study skills because most people are at home, and I wanna be able to serve you right now with school. So a lot of it is out of session, and you're working or learning remotely. I want to fill in the gaps because I think school is a wonderful place to learn, what to think, what to focus on, what to study, what to remember, but not necessarily how to do those things. There aren't a lot of classes on how to learn, how to study, how to focus, how to think, how to remember, how to read faster, right? Also as well, so that could be a challenge. So here we go, faster, F-A-S-T-E-R. The F stands for focus, all right, focus. And you can only learn well if you focus. The other way F stands for is forget, because what actually helps you to learn faster and focus is to forget what you already know about a subject. And so this book is mostly on methodology, how to do things, how to speed read, how to learn languages, facts, figures, and so on. But if you feel like you know how to study already, you are not open to new ideas. So remember this, your mind is like a parachute and it only works when it's opened. So it's kind of cheesy and corny, but it's true. And so keep an open mind. A lot of people have very antiquated ways of learning. So an old antiquated way of learning is rote repetition. And so I'm going to give you a memory test, for example, and if you see me on stage, I'll have 100 people stand up and introduce themselves, and I'll remember and recall all their names, or they'll give me 100 words or 100 numbers, and I'll memorize them forwards and backwards. And I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's truly possible, because the truth is, you could do this too. You just were not taught. And if anything, we were taught a lie that somehow our memory, our potential, our intelligence is somehow fixed. Like maybe fixed like the size of your shoes. And I'm here to say that we are grossly underestimating our own capabilities. And so F stands for forget what you already know about learning. Forget what you know about studying, about using rote repetition, cramming information in your head. It doesn't work for today. All right, and this is not a slight at all against teachers. My mother became a school teacher because of my learning disabilities. I had a head trauma, brain injury when I was 5 years old. It was a very slow processor. I had trouble focusing. I had trouble remembering things. I don't know if anyone could relate to this. It took me 3 years longer to learn how to read. I was put in special classes. When I was 9 years old, a teacher pointed to me in front of the whole class and said, "That's the boy with a broken brain." Now, by the way, I want to congratulate you on showing up today and watching this. And, I highly respect your time and your attention, because that's what your life is made out of. So I'm going to give you 100% over the course of these 75 to 90 minutes. I just ask that you give yourself 100% also. And that part of the F stands for forget about distractions. All right, be here right now, because what you put in is what you get out of it. So forget about what you know about the subject. You empty your cup so you can put something new in. Forget about what's going on in the world right now, at least for this, because this is your time well spent. And finally, forget about your limitations, right? Limitless is not about being perfect. Limitless is about progressing and advancing beyond what you currently believe is possible. If you're watching this on Instagram, I'm actually going live on Facebook. We have over 15,000 people registered for this free class. And so we're doing it here. I want to thank you. Share this wide and far, because I want to fill in the gaps of what we didn't learn back in school. Now that's the F, is forget what you know about a subject, forget about distractions. If something comes in your mind, just write it down, and then forget about your limits, okay? Because all limits are learned. And the sky is not the limit, your mind is the limit, okay? The only infinite resource we have on planet Earth is the mind. There is no limit to your creativity. There is no limit to your learning potential. There is no limit to your imagination. There's no limit to your motivation or determination. So the A in faster stands for active. You want to be active, because here's what you want to write down. Learning is not a spectator sport. Learning is not a spectator sport. And so you want to get off the bench and be involved, because 20th century education prepared us for a 20th century world, which at the turn of the 20th century was working in farms, working in factories, and that's not the world we live in right now. We live in an age of autonomous electric cars that drive themselves, spaceships that are going to Mars. But our vehicle of choice when it comes to learning and education is often a horse and buggy. So we want to upgrade our skills like we would upgrade our phone and upgrade our apps. But the most amazing technology is your brain. So when's the last time you upgraded your brain? That's what we're going to do right now. But you need to be active, because the human brain does not learn through consumption. It learns through creation. Meaning you can't sit there in class and just be lectured to today. Growing up with, scrolling and swipes and joysticks, you can't just sit there, and it's not the teacher's responsibility to push this information in your head. You have to be active. And so how can you be active? A couple of quick tips. And I am reading, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have everyone watching on the watch page, over, so many people, thousands of people all around the world. And again, if you're just joining us, my name is Jim Kwik of Kwik Learning, and my mission in life is to teach you how to learn quickly. I think if there's one skill to master in the 21st century, it's your ability to learn rapidly. Now, I am in New York City right now, as we're doing this live right now. I could see everybody who's participating here all around the world and where you're from. This is a community, right? And so we are cocooning, and while we're cocooning here, we could also get clarity on what we're doing, kind of a reset. We could also have care, self-care, and part of self-care is not just physical hygiene, it's mental hygiene, right? And so what can you do to upgrade your ability to care for yourself and for other people? I would also say, besides care and also through clarity, this is a wonderful time while you're cocooning, and cocooning is a great metaphor because I want you to transform. I want you, cool shirt, thank you. I wear brain shirts, by the way, and I'm making this conversational, because what you see, you take care of. You can see your hair, you take care of your hair. You see your clothing, you take care of your clothing. You see your skin, you can take care of your skin. But you don't see the most important thing in the world, which controls everything in your life, your grades, your career, your learning, your relationships, your health, which is your brain. So I always wear a brain on my shirt. I feel like, I point to my brain, I'm reminding you that take care of this, right? So that's care. Also contributing, how can you uniquely contribute in the world? If you feel fear, you feel anxiety, one of the best ways, the antidote to fear is service. So this is why we do this, this is our mission. We have students at kwiklearning.com in over 195 countries around the world, and our goal is to contribute and be able to change your brain so you can change your own world. So you can have a limitless learning, because you are a limitless learner. Your ability to learn is absolutely limitless, and a limitless mind gives you a limitless life, right? If you take care of your brain, your mind and your life will follow. And so going back to this is also a wonderful time, besides getting clarity, 5 C's. Clarity while you're cocooning. If you want to transform into this incredible butterfly and soar to new heights, I would recommend, number 1, use this time for clarity in your life. It's a nice pause, reset. And here's a magic question: what's most important to you in life? Just in general, like what's most important to you in school? What's most important where you tap into your passions and more of your purpose. Number 2, care for yourself. Take care of yourself. Make sure you prioritize sleep, because sometimes you pull those all-nighters in school and it's not good. And then you've heard me say this. I teach this at Caltech, at Harvard, at USC. Those all-nighters, they don't work. When you sleep, you consolidate short to long-term memory, so care. And then let's contribute, invite your friends to this so that they can learn also as well. And then also creativity. Right now, we are creating, and I'm gonna take you through some creative processes, because as you graduate school, where jobs are going right now, a lot of jobs are going to AI, artificial intelligence. They're becoming automated. What's not gonna be outsourced to a machine is your creativity. The future belongs to the creators, and that's why I say learning is not a spectator sport. Human brain does not learn through consumption, it learns through creation. So I want to create this movement of the mind. I believe we're in the millennium of the mind, so we're gonna do some fun stuff and be a little playful here today. So while you're doing this and you're being creative, like, I don't know if you know this, but it was during the Great Plague, where Shakespeare created Macbeth, Antony and Cleopatra. While the London school was closed because of the plague, it's when Isaac Newton had to socially distance himself. He had to go home, and when he was sitting underneath a tree in his yard, an apple fell on his head, and he came up with the theories of motion, the theories of gravity. So, we're going to be creative here. And then finally, the last C, while you're cocooning, and you want to come out smarter and stronger when you emerge, like a butterfly, is this thing called capabilities. And that's the focus in this session, because don't downgrade your goals in school and in life to meet this current situation. What you want to do is upgrade your skills and capabilities to meet your dreams and your destiny. And you have greatness inside of you. I'm going to prove it to you in this session. So, going back to the FAST, you have F is forget about everything that's going on, your limitations, and I do this purposely through review. A is you want to be active. Now, how can you be active besides ask wonderful questions? Take notes. And I mentioned I want you to have a notebook or a notepad. And what I want you to do is on this piece of paper, draw a line right down the page. So it looks like this. All right, it looks like this. And again, I have 3 cameras here recording, so bear with me. And I'm like a one-man studio right now because we're all physically distancing ourselves. On the left side of the page, you are going to capture. On the right side of the page, you are going to create. And this is a better way of taking notes. And instead of outline forms and maybe how you defaulted in terms of how do you take notes, the left side is you capture, the right side you create. What does that mean? On the left side of the page, I want you to take notes. On the right side, I want you to make notes. So when I say something and I go through and I talk about how to study and how long to study and the best brain foods to take you to new levels, to memorize facts and figures, you write that on the left side, you're taking notes. But on the right side, you're writing your impressions of what you're taking notes about, okay? And so one of the ways of being active, again, on the left side, you're taking notes. On the right side, I want you to answer 3 questions for yourself. I want you to ask this question: how can I use this? Why must I use this? And when will I use this? How can I use this? What my coach, my brain coach, right? Musicians have voice coaches. Athletes have, personal trainers. Business people have, marketing coaches or financial coaches. I want to be a coach for your mind. Just like how a physical trainer will make your muscles stronger and faster and more agile, more flexible, I want your mental muscles to be stronger, because this is about mental fitness. I want you to be brain fit, stronger, faster, more agile up here. Because today, when you graduate school, the average graduate I read is going to have anywhere from 8 to 12 different careers. And the number one skill to master is your ability to learn faster. All right, but you need to be active. So ask these 3 power questions. Number 1, how can I use this? How can I use what Jim is telling me right now? Number 2, why must I use this? And then finally, number 3, when will I use this? Okay, so that's how you be more active. And then the S in faster, S stands for state. All learning is state dependent. Write this down on the left side. All learning is state dependent, meaning the key to a long-term memory and the reason why most people forget things. Do this with me. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. All right, so do this with me. This is the active part. Information, say it out loud, combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. That's when you remember things. You remember things can you listen to a song and it can take you back to when you first heard that song or back to a moment? Is there a food or maybe a smell that could take you back, to when you were younger? Yes, because information by itself is forgettable. The periodic table is forgettable, right? But information tied to emotion becomes unforgettable. So S is state. So I'm going to ask you to control how you feel, because right now it's all about being a thermostat, not a thermometer. What do I mean by that? A thermometer, what's the job of a thermometer? The thermometer is, reacts to the environment. That's all a thermometer does, it reacts to the environment. But what does a thermostat do? A thermostat gauges the environment, but what does it do? It sets a new temperature, and then what happens to the environment? The environment reacts to it. And so I want you to be a thermostat. We all react to things, right? We react to what's going on in the world, we react to how people treat us, but ultimately the power comes from yourself, right? I remember I got to spend time, and I love the fact that you're in the comments, you're posting like these notes, because that helps you to share it, right? And be more active. And so I remember when I got to meet one of my heroes. So I couldn't read when I was a child. It took me an extra 3 years to learn how to read. And I taught myself how to read by reading comic books. And something about the illustrations and the story, it offered real hope to me. It offered real help. And something about it, it's just like we could all make a difference. And I remember when I got to go out to dinner with Stan Lee. Now, I don't know if you remember Stan Lee, but you would know who he is. He's the cameo king, right? He's the creator or the co-creator of all my favorite superheroes, the Avengers, the X-Men, right? Spider-Man. And I remember we were in the car going to dinner, and I asked him, who's your favorite superhero? And he's like, Jim, it's Iron Man. He said, Jim, who's your favorite superhero? And I said, it's Spider-Man. And I was like, wow. I was like, wow. And when I said Spider-Man, he said, with great power comes what? Great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. And I'm here to say that I reversed it in my head because I had 3 brain injuries, and I sometimes reverse things when I read. And I heard something different. I said, you're right, Stan, with great power comes great responsibility, and the opposite is also true. With great responsibility comes great power. I want you to remember this, whatever age you are or whatever stage you're at, that when you take responsibility for something, you have the power to make things better. And I think the most important thing to take responsibility for is how you feel about things. All right, and so you could change the way you feel. In fact, right now, let's play a game. On a scale of 0 to 10, how do you feel? Just how do you feel on a scale of 0 to 10? Just rate yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Some of you are at 10. Put it in the comments here. And if you're watching on the watch page, if you switch off between newest and oldest and go back to newest, you'll see all the latest comments that are there also as well. Or if you refresh the page, you'll see the latest comments. Now here, if you wanted to play a game with yourself and go from like a 5 to a 7, could you do it? What would you do? If you had to go from 5 to a 7, what would you do? Maybe you would smile, maybe you would take a breath, maybe you'd move your body around. In fact, shake out your body a little bit here. You know what changes your state? Movement. You know, your physiology and your psychology. That's what changes how you feel about something. And if you put your $1 billion smile on right now, you feel different, right? And that state that you learn something in gets coded in the memory, and it helps you to be able to remember it a lot better. Because here's the thing, if on a scale of 0 to 10, what's the state you feel like in school? What do you normally feel like in school? Like when you're studying in school and you're sitting in class, how do you normally feel? I'm reading these. Boredom. Boredom, let's take boredom. On a scale of 0 to 10, what's boredom? 0, right? And remember, information times emotion becomes a long-term memory. And so if you're bored, anything times 0 is what? Is 0, and you're not going to remember it quite as well. And that's the challenge. And so how can you upgrade your state? Because the state you learn something in is the state you're going to apply things in. Now, the T in faster, and I'm just going to try to move this camera here so I could, maybe this is a little bit better for Instagram. All right, the state you learn something in is the state you're going to remember it in. And so what I want you to remember is the T stands for teach. The T stands for teach. The T stands for teach. Now, what does that mean? If you want to learn something faster when you're in school, I want you to learn it as if you're going to teach somebody else. And the reason why it's so powerful is because if you had to teach what you're learning, like right now, like think about somebody you wish was watching this right now. Now, obviously share what you're watching right now, either on Instagram or Facebook, but the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. Because when you teach something, you get to learn it twice. When you teach something, you get to learn it twice. And that's why it's so important, right? So learn with the intention of teaching. And then finally, faster, the last 2 letters, E, stands for enter. What do I want you to enter? I want you to, if you want to learn faster, you have to enter it. The number 1 productivity and performance tool that you have is your calendar. If it's not in your calendar, you're not going to do it, right? And so just like you have your classes in your calendar, your study, I want you to practice. I want you to schedule your time to be able to learn, all right? You should have your to-do list, but I would also invite you to create another list, which is your to-learn list. What would you like to learn? And I think the number 1 skill to learn is learning how to learn, all right? Learning how to learn. Because if there was let's pretend there's a genie, and a genie would grant you any one wish. Any one wish, what would you wish for? Just one wish. Tell me. And I'm looking at the comments here. And here, and on Instagram. It's what? A million wishes, right? Infinite wishes. That would be what you would wish for. If you had one wish, you would ask for infinite wishes. Now let's say I am your learning genie. and I could help you master learn any one subject or any one skill, what would you ask for? What would be the equivalent of asking for infinite wishes? What subject or skill? It'd be learning how to learn. Because if you could learn how to learn, you could apply that towards everything. You could grant your own wishes. You could apply that towards math, history, science, Spanish, right? Music, money, management, martial arts, Mandarin. Everything gets easier if you can learn how to learn. But isn't it interesting we weren't taught learning how to learn? So the E in faster, enter your learning time to learn how to learn. And then finally, the last one is R. The R stands for review. One of the best ways to take short-term memory and convert it into a long-term memory is something called spaced review. Spaced review, and write that down. Spaced repetition or spaced review, it's where you take a pause and then like an hour later or a day later, you space it out and you review what you learned. So I'm going to ask you when we're done with this, maybe an hour later or tomorrow, I'd like you to review your notes, because that's how you take a short-term memory and convert it into a long-term memory. So that is the FASTER method, F-A-S-T-E-R. And for people who are just joining us, maybe somebody could summarize the notes right now for people who are just joining us, what FASTER stands for. You need a shirt and Learning Genie. Yes, these shirts, actually we donate 100% of the proceeds to from this book, limitlessbook.com, to build schools for girls and boys everywhere from Guatemala to Kenya. And we donate it also to Alzheimer's research in memory of my grandmother. But going back to this learning, you want to be able to apply this and be able to make a difference. I feel like that we could change your brain, then we could change the world. Some of you have watched our videos or our podcast at kwikbrain.com, 15 minutes on how to do these things, but this is a deep dive learning session. So just summarize it for everybody else faster. Thank you. This is a community. This is a movement of the mind, right? You are warriors of learning. Now, how do you actually apply FASTER, and how do I know this works? Well, you know my story, right? I had a head injury, I had learning challenges, and I became very passionate, going from below normal to above normal, sharing this with other people. And when I started teaching this at 18 years old, one of my very first students, she was a freshman in college, she read 30 books in 30 days. Can you imagine that? 30 books in 30 days. And she read it. She didn't just skim it or scan it, she actually read it. And most people don't do that. They buy books and they sit on your shelf and they become shelf help, not self-help, right? And you do this with your textbooks. You go through it and it's hard to read, right? Because have you ever read a page in a book and you get to the end and you just forgot what you just read? And you go back and you reread it and you still don't know what you just read? And that's a challenge, right? So we want to help you to be able to fix that. I'm going to share with you the exact tools on how to do that. And so what we're talking about here is really something called meta learning, learning how to learn. So let me do a test with you. If you see me again on stage do these memory demonstrations where people give me 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 words and I memorize them forwards and backwards, afterwards I tell you that I don't do this to impress you, I just express to you what's possible. So now I want to test you. I'm going to give you 10 words right now. And do not write them down in the chats. I want you just to memorize these 10 words. And these are 10 random words. And I want you to see how well you do with these 10 words. And then I'm going to teach you a memory tool that I teach in Limitless on how to remember these words. Okay? So don't write this down. Do not write this down. This is mental exercise. I'm going to give you 10 random words. Are you ready? You got this. All right. Fire hydrant, balloon, batteries, barrel, board, diamond, Sir Lancelot, mask, toothpaste, and sign. Okay, wait, I should actually memorize this too. 10 words. Okay, I gave you 10 words. What I want to do right now is we're going to measure your memory. This is just a simple memory test, a little fun game, right? A little brain exercise. And now that I went through it, you're thinking, Jim, stop talking so I could write this down. In your notes, what I'd like you to do is take a moment and write down as many of the 10 words as you recall. and you have to do it in order. All right, so take a moment and do that now. Take a moment and memorize and just write down the 10 words. How many do you remember of the 10 words? All right, I'm going to give you, you're writing down how many you remember. Let's go, I'll give you the words again. Fire hydrant, check yourself. Fire hydrant, balloon, batteries, barrel, board, diamond, Sir Lancelot, mask, toothpaste, and what was the last one? Sign. How many did you get? Put it in the comments down on wherever you're watching this right now. If you're watching on Instagram, if you're watching on Facebook, Jim Kwik Official is the Facebook page, or if you're watching on the watch page in our community. How many did you get out of 10? You don't even have to write down the ones you got. I just want to know how many you got. How many did you get correctly in order? 5, 7, 2, that's fine. 1. There is no right or wrong on this. There is no failure, there's only feedback. I want you to write this down. There is no failure, there's only failure to learn. All right? You got 6, but not in order. Battery, barrel. Good, good. All right, so here, let's switch hats. Let's say you are the memory expert. You're the memory coach. And I believe genius leaves clues. This is a belief that I have, that genius leaves clues. And that if you're successful at something, it's not random. That there's a method behind the magic. There are reasons why you remembered some, and there are reasons why you forgot some. So let's go through this. Which ones, talk to me here. Which ones did you tend to remember? Just which ones? Just write them down. Which ones did you remember? Fire hydrant, okay. Now here's my question. Why do you think you remembered fire hydrant? All right, let's think about this. Why do you think you remembered fire hydrant? Because it was first, all right? So I want you to write down in your notes, I want you to write down a list. These are memory principles. Memory principles. Principles of remembering things. We tend to remember things that are first. If I give you a list of 20 words, you're probably going to remember the first ones. All right, what other words do you tend to remember? Did you remember? Sign. Now, why do you think you remember sign? Because it wasn't first, it was what? It was last. Okay, so memory principle is we tend to remember things in the beginning of something, and we tend to remember something at the end of something. When you tend to remember something in the beginning, they call it primacy. Primacy. When you tend to remember something at the end, they call it recency. Recency. Now, recency is more recent, right? And so you tend to, if you went to a party, you went to a birthday party, and you meet new people, you probably remember the first people you met and the last people you met, because that's how your memory works. You remember things in the beginning, you remember things at the end. Now, a quick tip on how to study, the reason why you don't cram. Have you ever crammed at school? Yes or no? Have you ever crammed by a show of hearts or yeses? Have you ever crammed in school? Yes, right? Now, it's like you don't study for 5 weeks, and then the night before you're studying all night, and you pull an all-nighter, and the next morning at breakfast, you don't want anyone to talk to you because you don't want anything to spill out of your mind, and you can't wait to take the test. And then once you're done with the test, what happens? The information is what? It's just gone, right? There's a difference between cramming to forget and studying to remember. And so I want you to study things so that you recall it for a long period of time. And now here's the key. You need to take breaks, because according to primacy and recency, primacy says you remember something in the beginning of something. Recency says you tend to remember something at the end. So what does that mean? It means you tend to forget everything in the middle. So it's like this. Primacy says you tend to remember something. Let's say this is time, right? This is time. Let me get actually a marker. There's a marker here. Okay, so let's say you tend to remember something in the beginning and something at the end. So if this is time, right, and this is 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Primacy says you tend to remember something in the beginning and you remember something at the end, but there's a big dip in the middle. Do you see that? Primacy says you remember things at the beginning and at the end. So the reason why you take breaks is because what happens let's say you're taking a break every hour, you create more beginnings and more ends. Does that make sense? More beginnings, more ends. That means you pick up all of this lost information. Okay? Now, what's the opportune amount of time to study? The answer, about 25 to 30 minutes. 25 to 30 minutes, and then you take a break. They call it the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro technique. Research says that if after about 25 or 50 minutes, 25 or 30 minutes, there's a dip in your focus and your concentration. And by taking a break every 25 or 30 minutes, maybe the length of a sitcom on television, your attention span, and taking a 5-minute break and then coming back to the information, you create more firsts and more endings. All right, so then you can learn so much more. Now during those, I call those 5-minute breaks brain breaks. And I want you, I'm not saying study just 25 minutes, I'm saying do it intelligently. During that 5 minutes, you do 3 things. I want you during those 5 minutes to, number one, I want you to hydrate. So while I say hydrate, I'll drink right now. Because your brain is mostly water, 75% water. And do you know this, that when you're dehydrated, just staying hydrated will boost your thinking speed and your reaction time 30%. 20 is amazing. Just staying hydrated boosts your thinking and your reaction time like literally 30%. So stay hydrated. So hydrate. Make sure if you suffer from brain fog or you suffer from mental fatigue while you're studying, looking at a textbook, you want to be able to hydrate. Second thing I want you to do while you're taking your brain break, just 5-minute brain break, is to breathe, because your brain is only 2% of your body mass, but it requires 20% of the nutrients and the oxygen. Again, your brain is only 2% of your body mass, but it requires up to 20% of the nutrition and the oxygen. And so a lot of people, with students, when you're studying, you feel tired because you're not getting enough oxygen, because you're holding your breath or you're shallow breathing. And did you know the lower 1/3 of your lungs absorbs 2/3 of the oxygen? The lower 1/3 of your lungs absorbs 2/3 of the oxygen. And so that's when you have to check in with your posture, because a lot of people, a lot of students, when they're studying something, they're bent over. And if you bend over and you're slouched and you're slumped, your posture, when you're reading a book, for example, what you're collapsing is your diaphragm, and you're not getting enough oxygen, and you wonder why you're tired when you're studying. All right, so you want to make sure you oxygenate. So make sure you use this time to breathe, okay? And then finally, besides hydrating and getting oxygen and breathing, the third thing I would say is move your body. As your body moves, your brain grooves. As your body moves, your brain grooves. When you move your body, you create something called brain-derived neurotropic factors. Brain-derived neurotropic factors. Fancy words, right? But remember BDNF. It's like fertilizer for your brain. And so when you move, by moving your body, you actually make more connections, and it helps you to be able to learn. When you listen to audiobooks or you listen to my podcast, for example, you just search Jim Kwik on your podcast app. We've done 200 episodes on how to optimize your sleep and how to study and how to learn languages, how to break your bad habits, how to focus and concentrate. 15 minutes. But if you listen to it when you're taking a walk, or you're maybe doing some light exercise like on an elliptical or on a treadmill, you'll learn it actually better. Because as your body moves, your brain grooves. And so you want to be able to move. The primary reason you have a brain is to control your movement. And they say sitting is the new smoking. Sitting is the new smoking. And I don't know if it goes that far, but I would say that we are behind screens all the time, and we're meant to be able to move. And when you move, you actually learn better. all right? And so going back to your learning, let's go back to this list. If you're just joining us, we're doing a memory test. I gave everybody 10 words to memorize, and you said you remember the first one, fire hydrant, you remember the last one, sign, because of primacy and recency. What other words did you remember? Just point them out, just looking at them. Good, 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 good. Okay, you tend to remember Sir Lancelot, okay? How many of you remember Sir Lancelot? Why do you think, going back to Genius Leaves Clues, why do you think you remember Sir Lancelot? Because it was different. When you make things different or unusual, or things are different and unusual, you remember them better. So that's a principle of memory. So you have 3 principles of memory so far. You remember things in the beginning, primacy. You remember things at the end, recency. You remember things that are different. What other things did you remember? What other things did you remember? The four B's, okay? You might remember balloon, battery, barrel, board. And now, why would you remember those? Because it's organized. And so that's a principle to memory. When you organize information, you're going to remember it better. If I gave you a list of 20 words, right, maybe we could try that also, 20 words, but I said, okay, these words are going to fall into these 3 categories. They are fruits, they are they're country capitals, and they are like colors. You're going to remember a lot more because it's organized. What other things? So that's a principle of memory. Primacy, recency, things that are unusual or different, and things that are organized. What other words did you remember? Toothpaste. Why would you remember toothpaste? Because you brushed your teeth today, hopefully, right? You brush your teeth because that's part of care, and it's familiar to you. So we tend to remember things that are familiar. You're more likely to remember someone's name. How many of you are very forgetful with people's names? Right? You forget someone's name. And it's always this. You forget someone's name, but you could remember it, right? But going back to organization and things that are different, we tend to remember also not only the things that we see, we tend to remember things that are familiar. You're probably going to remember someone's name who has that same name of a family member, right? So if you have a brother or sister and you meet somebody with that same name, it's familiar. So that's a principle to memory. Let's build this out even more here. What other words did you remember? You're like, oh, I remember the ones that, I remember diamond. Now, why would some people remember diamond? Because it's valuable, it is, maybe some people have some emotion around some of these words. So write that down. Things that are interesting, things that are emotional, we tend to remember. So those are principles to your memory. And you'll see how we're going to apply this in a moment. What other ways did you remember? Things you pictured. Very good. How many of you are much better at remembering things that you see? You see someone's face. Are you better with faces than you are with names? Yes, right? You go to somebody and you say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name. You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never go to someone and say, I remember your name, but I forgot your face. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. There's a proverb that says, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. What I hear, I forget. I heard the name, I forgot the name. What I see, I remember. I saw the face, I remember the face. And what I do, going back to practice, practice makes what? Practice makes progress. Practice makes progress. Practice makes permanent, right? Not perfect. There's never a perfect, right? Limitless is not about, this book is not about being perfect. Limitless is not about being perfect. Limitless is about advancing and progressing beyond what you currently believe is possible. All right, so remember that. And so practice. And so we tend to remember what we see. So visualization is an element to a better memory. So the principles of memory, right? Visualization. Because if you can imagine it, you're more likely to remember it. Now, some of you mentioned this mask because of what's going on in the world, right? And maybe that's why I unconsciously said the word mask. So that's, again, something that is familiar to you. And so you're more likely to remember it. Some people remember things that they associated together. Like some people put 2 things together. Did you do that? So association, when you link 2 things together and put 2 of the words together, then you're more likely to remember it. And we could go on and on, but these are some of the core principles to a better memory. Now let me show you how to remember this list, because most people got anywhere from 1 to 5 or 6 or 7 of the words. Let me show you how to remember all the words, forwards and backwards, using the principles that you told me helps you to remember things. Here, you remember? Are you ready? What I want you to do is I want you to take a deep breath. Remember, this is the active part. Exhale, and I want you to close your eyes, and I want you just to imagine. I want you to imagine and go on this little journey with me. I'm going to walk you through an exercise. I'm going to take the principles of memory that you told me here that helped you to remember things and apply it towards all the words, so you can remember all the words, forwards. Are you ready? In order. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine a fire hydrant. Imagine in front of you is a fire hydrant somewhere in your neighborhood. And I want you to do it vividly. I want you to imagine what color it is. Say out loud what color your fire hydrant is. Say it out loud. Good. And if you can't imagine it, imagine you can imagine it. Imagine you can imagine it. Fire hydrant in front of you. And tied to the fire hydrant is a gigantic helium balloon. Gigantic balloon. Actually, many, many balloons. Big, big balloons. And I want you to look at the balloons. Notice what color the balloons are. Say out loud what color your balloons are. Say it out loud. There's no right or wrong. Good. And there's so many balloons there that it rips the fire hydrant from the ground and it starts bringing it up into the air and starts floating up, 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 up into the sky. Now I want you to imagine that. And just like water spewing everywhere, fire hydrants being carried around by all these balloons. And out of nowhere, all these batteries come, and they come through the air, a barrage of batteries, and they pop the balloon. They pop the balloon. I want you to imagine that. All right, and you're like, where do all those batteries come from? They're coming from, on the ground, a gigantic wooden barrel. A gigantic wooden barrel in the ground. Somebody's throwing all these batteries out, and they pop the balloon. Batteries, but they're coming from the barrel. I want you to look at that barrel, that wooden barrel. Good. And what makes this barrel different or unique, because you said that's very important to remembering things, is there's a surfboard on the side of the barrel. Board, to remind you of the word board. There is a surfboard on the side of the barrel. I want you to look at that surfboard. And rolling down the surfboard is a diamond. But it's not a 1 or 2 carat diamond. It's like a 100 carat diamond, and it's just rolling down the board. 100 carat diamond rolling down the board. And it's like the size of, I don't even know how big that would be. Maybe a baseball. And it's rolling down the board, and it falls off the board, and it lands on Sir Lancelot's head. It lands on Sir Lancelot's head, and it knocks him cold. Sir Lancelot's a knight, right? And so a knight in full armor lands on his head, and he gets knocked out, and he's like on the ground. And you go to save Sir Lancelot, and you put on an oxygen what? Mask. You put on an oxygen mask on him. But before you put on the mask, you notice it's dirty, all right? And so you have to clean it. And what do you clean it with? Toothpaste. Toothpaste. You put toothpaste. What's your favorite toothpaste? What brand of toothpaste do you use? Just type it in. Actually, you actually don't even type it in. Just in your mind. Say it out loud. Good. Whatever brand of toothpaste, say it. Good. And then finally, the toothpaste, when it's done, it animates. It becomes alive, the toothpaste, and it runs into a big neon sign. A big neon sign. And the sign says, what does it say? It says limitless, because you are limitless. The sign, the big neon sign says limitless, and the toothpaste runs into the neon sign and it explodes. And there's toothpaste all over the sign. All right, it's kind of crazy. It would never happen, but that's what makes it memorable. All right, with your eyes closed, what I want you to do is walk through, and with your eyes closed, say out loud the 10 words now, starting with fire hydrant. Take a moment and write down, you can open your eyes if you like, and write down in your notes the 10 words. Take a moment and write down the 10 words. take a moment and just write down the 10 words that you remember, all the ones you remember. And I'm starting with words because to remember words, those are the building blocks. If you want to memorize a poetry, if you want to memorize facts, it all starts with words. Now, as you're writing these out, how are we doing so far? Better than the first time? Better than the first time? All right. Let's, for the sake of time, let's do it together. What was number 1? Say it out loud. Fire hydrant. After fire hydrant, you remember what? Balloons. After balloons, you remember what? Batteries. After batteries? Barrel. Good. After barrel? Board. After board, what was rolling down the board? Diamond. After diamond? Sir Lancelot. After Sir Lancelot? Mask. After mask? Say it out loud. Toothpaste. After toothpaste? Sign. Amazing. How many did you get this time? Put it in the chat. And again, if you're doing this on Instagram, we're about to run out of time because there's only an hour available on Instagram. We're doing most of this broadcast on Jim Kwik Official on Facebook. And if you don't have Facebook, it is, if you went to kwikbrain.com/class, we are doing it on our website, jimkwik.com/class. So I'd encourage everybody on Instagram that's watching this, the 1,200 people who are watching it on Instagram Live right now, to move over there because we're gonna hit the hour limit on Instagram Lives. It's amazing, right? Amazing. You went from 3 to 8, you went 3 to 9, some of you went from 5 to 10. Outstanding. I have a question for you. Can you do it backwards? Can you remember this list forwards and now backwards? kwikbrain.com/class. I want to make sure on Instagram. Can you remember it backwards? Say it out loud with me. Sign. Before sign was what? Let's do it together. Toothpaste. Before toothpaste was what? Mask. Before mask. Sir Lancelot. Before Sir Lancelot. Diamond. Before diamond. Board. What about before board? You got it. Barrel. Batteries. Balloon. And what's the last one? The first one? Fire hydrant. How many did you remember? Were you able to do it backwards also? Were you able to do it backwards? Okay, so here is the message here. There is no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. There is no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. When it comes to your education, we've already talked about learning how to learn. We talked about FASTER, the 6 keys to learning any subject or skill faster. We talked about, the principles of memory, and we demonstrated them here today. It's not how smart you are or how smart your kids are. It's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. It's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. If you are physically taking notes right now, I'll prove it to you. I want you to write down your first and last name. Write down your first and last name on your notes. And then what I want you to do is switch hands, and then with your opposite hand, right below it, your first and last name. Your first and last name with your opposite hand. Now, let me ask you a question. Which one was easier, the first or the second time? The first, right? Which one's better? Which one was more comfortable? The first, right? Which one was better quality? Hopefully the first, right? So the second time we using your non-dominant hand, it was slower, it was uncomfortable, and the quality wasn't quite as good. Have you ever been in class, in school, and you're normally interested in a subject, but you're not, for some reason you're not getting it? Because maybe the way you learn is different than the way the teacher teaches, and you're missing each other like two ships in the night. You're passing each other and there's no connection, right? Because the way you prefer to learn, which is your dominant hand, is different than the way their teacher teaches, so it feels like it takes longer, and it feels like it's uncomfortable, and it also feels like the quality is not quite as good. And so what I want to do in the next, we'll go about another half an hour, and I'll take some questions also, because I want to teach you like the 10 keys to upgrading your brain, the best brain foods, and how to optimize like all your studies. And I'm going to show you how to use it again to be able to memorize these things. The reason why is take the judgment out. You know, I grew up as the boy with the broken brain, and my mission is to build better, brighter brains, right? I believe you have your ability to learn is limitless. And you have a limitless mind, you can have a limitless life. And so I'm going to share with you right now the limitless model. Now I got to stop the Instagram real quick. So we're going to pause for 10 seconds. And I'm going to go into the limitless model, and I'm going to share you the 10 keys for unlocking your Kwik brain, your limitless brain when you're studying, okay? You're remarkable. Thank you, Instagram. I'll see you on Facebook. Go to kwikbrain.com/class. kwikbrain.com/class, and you could watch this. Or on Facebook, Jim Kwik Official. Much love.